us this evening. My name is Matt Hall and I'm the Director of Marketing Admissions at the Australian International School in Singapore. Before we get started this afternoon, there's a few administrative tasks I would like to attend to. The first is I'd just like you to turn your microphones off. It just helps with our sound quality. And secondly, this evening's session is recorded and it's also interactive. So if you've got any questions throughout when Anna says something interesting you'd like to know a bit more, please just type them into the side, into the chat function at the bottom, and we actually will have a specific Q&A session at the end. So we finish about 20 minutes early and then we can go through those questions. But in the past, we've found that guests get the most out of these sessions by asking their questions, and Anna will ask all sorts of things around early childhood as she's an absolute expert. Today is our 4th episode of the year in our webinar series called Into the Classroom, where we celebrate our many talented educators across our 3 sub-schools. Today we will be featuring Anna Ciezczyk, our much-loved head of infant care. Anna has had an extensive international teaching career, starting in her native Poland before moving to the UK and Asia. Not only is Anna a highly experienced early years educator, but she is incredibly well educated with a master's degree and has recently embarked on a doctorate studies at Walden University in the US. And with that, Anna, welcome along.
Hello, Matt. Actually, I have already finished my master's degree with Walden, and I am now Singapore bound almost with NTU University. So I'm sure that a lot of our local parents will be familiar with the university and what a great quality of education that they provide as well.
That's very exciting. I think when me and you were chatting before, when we're talking about your doctorate studies, which I think is fabulous, what is the focus on this? Can you explain to the audience a little bit about that?
Sure. So I'm actually primarily interested in curriculum and how to bring about a better quality education for the very young learners. And as you know, they are very often, in most cases, really pre-verbal because they are just babies. They are 18 months old and younger. So it's very hard to build a curriculum around them when they are unable to communicate their needs and their interests. But of course, when I say that they are unable, that's not true. They are. They are just not communicated verbally. But they are showing us in many ways, in ways that they interact with resources in the classroom, how what kind of expressions they put on their faces when they touch things and interact with things. So it takes a very attuned educator, someone who's very reflective, to be able to pick up on those little nuances and build that curriculum around the interests of the children.
I find it fascinating when you're talking about the curriculum in the early years, and when we were talking, you showed me this slide. I'll just show the audience this lovely slide because I thought this was interesting. There's this gorgeous slide that's put together, but where I wanted to start first of all, but when we go on this, is you've got the 9 squares up here, and this I thought was really interesting when talking about curriculum and curriculum planning. Can you talk the audience through what we're looking at?
Yes, so we actually have 2 types of curricula in the infant care. This is necessary because very young children have very short wake periods. The wake windows can be between 1 and 2 hours. So of course we want to maximize the time that we spend with them. That's why the daily rituals that children do around their nappy changes and sleeping time are so important. It takes up a lot of our time. That's why we want to bring that quality and make sure that we are talking to the children, respecting them, talking to them about their bodies. For example, if I was changing somebody's nappy, I would say, I'm going to lift your bottom up now, and I'm going to wipe, and oh, look at your little toes going through the pant leg. So children start understanding, they listen, and at some point when you say, I need you to lift your bottom up, you can actually feel that they are flexing their muscles. So that understanding comes in through repetition. We recognize these very important caregiving moments as curriculum. We want them to be that one-on-one time when you can fill that child's emotional bucket, and just provide a really good language sample too. But in the classroom, of course, we are looking at another type of curriculum, which is called the emergent curriculum, because it emerges out of the child, not from the teacher's will or whatever is, you know, considered to be appropriate. It's not alphabets, it's not numbers, but it's what the child is showing you that they are developmentally ready for. So if you look at those little squares, you have circles in the middle. Yes. And those circles are sort of like the interest areas. So you would have scooping and pouring, for example, in one of the circles. And then you can see tiny little webs coming out of it. So if we notice that children are into scooping and pouring, let's bring buckets. Let's try that with water. Let's try it with goop. Let's try it with sand. So all these different ideas are going to go up on the board, and then gradually throughout the coming weeks, we're going to implement scooping and pouring in many different ways.
I just loved when you talked about that because you said this image was actually taken from your staff room. Is that right? Is that where it sits? Is that where it sits?
That's where it sits, yes. So that reminds us of what the children are currently exploring, and so that we can also have these professional conversations during lunch times or whenever we're sitting down together in the staff room. It's very important that we live and breathe that curriculum, and we're constantly thinking about children and what they might need. When you look at the photos here that I included, you can see that these are two different age groups. We have, actually we divide our children into three age groups. One is the snugglers, who are 0 to 6 months old. Sorry, 3 to 6 months old. We haven't had 0 yet. 3 to 6 months old. Then we have 6 to 12-month-olds who are crawlers, and 12 to 18 months old stumpers. But of course, that's a very liquid boundaries, because some children start walking sooner, some take their time, and that's absolutely fine. Yeah. But when you look at the photo, this is one of our provocations. We've noticed that children were interested in movement. Right. So you can see how different that looks for a snuggler versus a stumper. So the little boy climbing there, he's very capable. He needed a challenge. We recognized it, and we brought the A-frame so he could climb. But when you look at the little baby here on the left, resting underneath the umbrella, her concept of movement will be the feathers moving in the wind and swaying. That's also a movement you can observe, but cannot necessarily yet participate in, like the little boy who's climbing. So these are the ways that we tailor our curriculum to different age groups and children's needs. It's very individualized.
I do adore the three distinct age groups. Can you say them again? What are the three little groups you've got?
Snugglers, crawlers, and stumpers.
The stompers, it describes as first steps just right, doesn't it? Right?
Yes.
They do
when they start stomping around the classroom, there's no stopping them. They love the fine and gross motor skills activities. So we make sure that there's plenty of opportunities for them to explore in a way that is appropriate for their development.
I like that. On our very first slide that we have here, and I think that people are probably already starting to get a bit of a feel from you, but this is a slide deck that we have, and this is our logo on it. But the love, care, respect, and I know that the audience might have missed that, but can you talk about why this is so important and so specific to the early years area of our school?
Yes. I would actually call this our philosophy. I'm not sure if parents are familiar with philosophies such as RIE or Reggio. There are so many different philosophies out there. But the very plain truth is that none of these philosophies can be directly transplanted onto another culture in another country. So in the end, you just pick and choose what works for you in Singapore, in this country, in our infant care. And we always ask ourselves, are these practices that we are employing and adapting, do they have love, care, and respect at the heart of everything? We want to make sure that every child feels special here. The way we communicate with them is respectful. We speak to them as though they could understand everything we're saying. So we wouldn't, for example, be approaching them to wipe their noses without asking them permission. I mean, if I came up to you right now and tried to wipe your nose, you would feel terrible. You'd probably be taken aback. Why are you doing this? So we always ask children for permission. So it's down to the detail of how are we interacting with them? How do we lift them up when we want to take them from one place to another? Do we let them know before we do that? So that respect is very important to our philosophy here.
I like that, and I think you've sort of embarked on something. What we all know that there's different schools of thought in the early years and thinking and those, and the Australian scored to take our own philosophy and think what do we really believe is important, and it's beautifully simple, isn't it? And it summarizes everything. I think everyone can resonate with that. When we were having our chat, though, what I really did enjoy, and it shows, I think, how much early years education's actually changed from, I'm thinking 10 years ago with this, is respectful of the parents' roles and responsibility. Because I really wanted to touch on this, because I thought in different cultures and how things can be different from one family to another. And when we chatted, I thought, gosh, I would love you to share that with the audience a bit more.
Yeah, so it's the love, care, and respect that is at the heart of our philosophy. Also transcends these boundaries of infant care. We want parents to feel that we are loving, caring, and respecting them as well. So for you, for example, you're a parent yourself, and I'm sure taking your child to infant care or daycare and being confronted by educators who might have really good intentions and tell you what is the right way to raise your child or how to change their routines around throughout the day. These are well-meaning educators, but what's very important to take into consideration is the parents' cultures and backgrounds. If we think about something like co-sleeping, for example, that is a very touchy subject with families, with parents, because some parents are really convinced this is the right thing to do. And some parents will say, absolutely no co-sleeping. And then there are many educators who will also say co-sleeping is not okay. We do not condone. But for us, we've read our research. We know that this is simply a matter of culture and convictions, backgrounds, values, beliefs, and it has nothing to do with a child's development. So we want to bring that respect to the parents now and say, if you have certain beliefs and values that are very important to you and your family, in your background, in your culture, we will respect them. We will adapt them, and we will try to give you that extension of your home life at infant care. We wouldn't be making decisions, very important decisions about a child without consulting the parent. I feel like even though in education at the moment, there's a lot of talking about parents and educators being partners, we need to recognize we're not equal partners. Parents are always, and will always be, the child's first educator, and we respect that.
Yeah, you've touched on some amazing things there. I think that it's just the way that even you speak, Anna, this, how it shows how things have moved probably in this time. And like you say, it can be very daunting for a new parent or any parent coming into a room, like you say, with a group of educators, someone like yourself who's very well educated in early years education, and be overwhelmed or be concerned about that. And I just loved that your whole philosophy was, no, we work with the parents with this, and what they say is is what we want to follow, which I thought is really lovely. Now, to even take it a little bit further, and I've got this one here. Let me just, or have I gone past it? Wait 1 second. Let me go. No, wait a second. Let me find this slide. This is what I wanted. And the reason I brought this up is, and it is Stormpark that you use, and Anna's going to have a little giggle there because I keep on calling it storyboard, but Stormpark. And this, when we chatted the other day, I thought this is terrific. We're going to talk about Stormpark, but just like you said then, this middle slide for the parents is a daily routine. Now, I thought this was created by the school, and you corrected me very quickly. So can you correct me again and talk the families through what they're looking at when they're looking at this middle slide there with Stormpark?
Yes, isn't technology amazing? It really has helped us so much, because when you think of separation anxiety, something that parents always ask me about, we're not always speaking of separation anxiety of the child from the parent. But the separation anxiety from a parent from the child is also a very real thing. Going back to work and not being able to oversee the routine can be really stressful. So here's where technology comes in to help us out. And we find that this is fantastic, especially for the new parents who have just, who are separating from the child for the first time. And we are talking about COVID babies as well, who have grown up, not socializing as much as pre-pandemic.
Right.
So the parents want that for the children to come in and make friends. So we do bring them a little bit of solace by using this app called Stormpark. So as the day unfolds, we log in the nappy changes, meal times, sleep times, when they fell asleep, when they're awake. Now, I'm a little blind, so I'm going to come a little closer to the screen. I hope you cannot see my pores. I make special makeup for all of you guys. So as you can see, the child here in question, whose name I have blurred out, had a snack at 9 a.m., then had a wet nappy at 9:30, started sleep right after. So we always change nappies before and after sleep, and then as the child needs it. We also mark how much the child ate. This is a very good eater, as you can see, ate all on all lines there. And this way, the parent can at least breathe a sigh of relief. Oh, thank goodness they fell asleep. Oh, thank God they had a snack. I'm feeling okay. They're doing fine. But I do also use Stormpark for another reason. I like to update parents on what's going on in the classroom and what we are into at the moment. As you can see, the webs are in the staff room, but how it translates onto the environment, it's completely different. So I would describe what kind of resources we're using, who's interested in what, lots of photos, lots of videos. And the amazing thing is that parents can actually comment on these stories or make posts from home. So let's say a child has a new skill and they wanted to celebrate that with us. They could make a post on Stormpark on their end. And then I would know, for example, John started walking. And I can tell all of the teachers in my program, John is walking now. Let's support that. Let's bring him out to the table for his lunch by holding his hands instead of carrying him. So it's a fantastic mode of communication for all of us.
It's a platform that we use across the school, right up to our elementary, for different reasons and different ways. I just love the way that you use it to show the routine, and then, like you said, this routine was created together. It wasn't a routine set by the school, which I liked.
That's right.
Another
We
part-
mirror the routines from home. So
Yeah.
we copy them exactly. Of course, there might be a little hiccup sometimes. Like, for example, the child is really enjoying their lunch and they're taking so much time because they want extras, or they're just playing with their food and enjoying the texture. We might actually allow a couple more minutes for them to really enjoy that experience and put them down to sleep 10 minutes later. But we do have also parents who prefer that we read cues. So
Right.
you can see it's a very individualized approach,
Yeah.
because every child is different. Some children are like clockwork, for example, we'll know that this child is going to have a solid nappy at 9 a.m. exactly. And that's fantastic. It's very easy to carry out a routine like this. And we have children who only fall asleep when they are really tired, or only eat when they are hungry and they are not on a schedule. So then we are very adept at reading their cues. But as you can see, there's a little photo in the left corner.
Yes.
Those are the boards that we have in the classroom that remind us what time the child is going down for a nap, what time we need to prepare the bottle, so that whoever is in the class is on top of the routine. Because it is important for the parents. Sometimes we might put, if we put a child down for a nap at a wrong time, then the whole night they will be up, waking up the parents who are working adults and also need their rest. So we are very respectful when it comes to that.
I love the way that you do that and note those down. The other thing that you were saying to me the other day for Stormpark, which I thought was really interesting, was we are living with a lot of parents who are expats or away from grandparents, or even perhaps a spouse that's traveling for work. And it was just really nice to share their learning, their day, their growth.
Especially now when we have COVID, and it's very hard for families to join, to visit and stay connected. So I do, when I send out an invitation to Stormpark, it makes the parent the admin of the account. So they're in charge of who gets invited and who doesn't get invited. So if they want grandma, grandpa, uncle from Australia, from America, from wherever in the world to see what the child is doing at school and have a view of these beautiful little moments, or even have a chat with us and drop a comment underneath the post, we always reply. So it's lovely that we are connecting with people from all over the world, and everybody's coming together to kind of benefit that child and their development.
Yeah, it's engaging families, isn't it? And it's nice. And like you said, you've said a couple of things that are interesting, and it is the COVID time where travel and grandparents and aunties and uncles are perhaps missing out on some developmental things and seeing them grow up as much as they want. So for the families, I imagine it's really is lovely to do that. Now, and what I thought was interesting, you just said then, and it is quite interesting being a year in, is you would have, and are not COVID babies as in they've had COVID, but they've been born, their whole life's been in the period of COVID.
That's right. So actually, at the moment, all of our babies were born in that era. So that's all they know. All they know is being home with parents and just having a very limited number of guests in the house, or seeing a limited number of people when they go out. Even playgrounds, they've been shut down for a while, so everything is opening up now, which is wonderful. But a lot of parents come to us simply because they would like to open up that child's world to other people.
Yeah, well, and it was just now that you said that I thought, gosh, that is actually interesting, isn't it? These will be the first children who actually this has been their world so far. It'll change, but
it will. And I think we are doing a really good job as a school, as a whole, addressing these challenges and coming out to connect the families, to bring children those social skills, and to try and cope in these very difficult times in a way that still makes children happy, and they are happily exploring and making friends and being curious about each other. So I would say they wouldn't know any better. They're still really happy and socializing.
I love the way that you do that. Now, I know that everyone on here who's got a young one, a big part of sending your precious little infant along is a lot about routines, like we just talked about. And one of the biggest routines is this one here, the middle one. I'm thinking sleeping. And I think for every parent who's online, I'd like to hear how you do this and what does it look like, and even the different cots that you have for the different children.
I love sharing these things. I just find that I have such lovely staff who is trained in safe sleep as well. Right. So even though we have parents who come in and say, oh my goodness, I don't know how he or she is going to sleep in infant care because I'm having such trouble. But we actually, somehow we never do. But I do always tell parents that it's easier for us to take care of a number of children than for one adult to take care of one child. Because children do get a little bit more, seek more attention when they are just one-on-one. So they do follow social cues, social referencing. They look at each other, learn from each other. It's almost like a sibling arrangement. Yeah. So we have two types of cots. We have high cots and we have low cots. The high cots are for babies who are not yet pulling themselves up and cruising. And the low cots, once they start pulling themselves up, it's just safer to move them to a lower cot. We do not share cots. Each child has their own. We do fresh sheets. As you saw in the previous slide, we have washing machines, so we get that all nice and clean for the next day. The room is nice and dim. And there is white noise in the background. We use the womb sounds and the heartbeat sounds, which are very familiar to babies at this age, because that's essentially what they hear before they come out into the world. And we also perform something called a sleep check every 15 minutes. This is when we come in, visually check that children are okay, that they're not getting caught up in, sheets, for example. We do not allow blankets, for example, because we are quite concerned that might be a choking hazard. So this is all part of the safe sleep policy. Upon sleep check, we also put our hands on children's chests to make sure that they are still breathing. So we do take huge responsibility for these little people so that parents can feel safe and know that they are well taken care of when they are here with us.
Yeah, you were just going to say that, and you've kind of already described part of it, but you just said that all the staff have been through safe sleep training.
That's right.
What does that mean?
They know how to put babies to sleep. They know what to avoid, how to do the sleep checks. We have, generally, we do not experience many issues with training babies to settle themselves. In the first couple of days, they might need a little more help, a bit of patting. Sometimes they will need to come out of the cot for a little while. We do not let them cry in the cots for long periods of time, because it's when a baby cries themselves to sleep, their sleep is not a deep, restful sleep, because they're already so worked up. So if they have been crying for a little while, we'll take them out, we'll try again in a little bit. And this way, within a couple of days, we're back on track with routines, and the babies are sleeping peacefully.
You've got such a calm way of dealing with that. I can imagine it's like that. I think you said that yourself, that there's a chair in there as well, that the staff can go in there and just pick the little one up and spend time in there.
Oh, absolutely. So it's one of the most popular rooms. I think it's so nice and quiet and calm and dim. We do have a special chair, like you mentioned, where babies can be cradled and soothed if they are very upset. But of course, this is to be expected. They don't really have the experience of someone else other than their mommy and daddy putting them to sleep or feeding them. Right. So it can take a couple of days to adjust. Although you will be surprised, some babies are just like that. They come in and are like, yes, I'm home here.
I think I'd be sound asleep in that chair if you put me in that for more than 2 minutes, but it sounds rather lovely. And again,
I think check on you, I think, Matt.
yeah. I think we've got here this last image that we've got up there. This looks like it is from Stormpark.
Yes, so I think I skipped ahead when I was speaking about these updates that I do on curriculum. So this is the example.
Right.
This is about partnership and communication mainly. So these comments that parents and guardians and extended family can put in on the post, so we can keep communicating about the child. The reason why I chucked it in under partnership and communication as well with the COTS is because I wanted parents to know that we will run everything by them. So if they want to change sleep times for the babies, and for example say, I think my baby girl is ready for one sleep, let's transition. So then we would be partnering together to make sure that gradually we get the baby to the point where she can just have that one sleep throughout the day instead of 2 or 3. But this, of course, happens gradually, and we are happy to provide parents with some strategies if they need it for home, or if they have strategies that will work really well for them, we're also happy to adapt them here.
I like that, and what's lovely about what which I actually missed the first time I saw this. This has been viewed 175 times with 7 chats and 14 hearts. I thought, wow,
that's lovely.
Such engagement, isn't it? Now, just going to jump back because just then you said about you run things past the parents, and what I liked about, if I'm going to jump, oh, actually that's the one I want. If I'm going to jump to this one here, when we chatted the other day. Prior to coming into this episode, we were talking about food, and you said beautifully, you said, we wouldn't even, which makes sense, you wouldn't even give a child new food without asking the parent. And so that sort of leads me on to this beautiful slide, which tells us a little bit about, and you can talk to it anyway better than me.
Yes. So this lovely person here with the card is one of our staff from Chartwells, who is they're like a catering company for the school. The kitchen prepares special meals for infant care, which are not actually part of the preschool menu. This is because a lot of our infants are on the 7 to 12 month menu, although it could be sooner if a baby's ready. So again, very individualized. We have the puree menu for them. And usually the first purees are packed in tiny little cups. I'm not sure if you can see on one of those cards there. There's a plastic cup there. And on top, there's a child's name. So it's a label with the child's name and the ingredients inside. So we can double, triple check that the right child has been given the right meal, especially when it comes to allergies. It's so important to get it right. I find that the very young learners, the very young babies, do tend to develop allergies to foods quite easily if they are introduced at the wrong time. So we have a special allergen-free kitchen that prepares dairy-free, egg-free, whatever you need for your child is prepared in that kitchen to make sure that there's no cross-contamination between foods. So it's quite safe. I would also, sorry, I forgot to mention there's a second menu apart from purees. That's the chunky menu from 12 to 18 months old.
Right.
That's more like rice and meats and vegetables. They are very finely chopped. However, for children who are transitioning from purees to the chunky foods, we kind of mix the two together. So you can see there's a spectrum, there's an array of menus that we create out of what we have, what we are being provided, and depending on what parents need. There are a number of parents who follow the baby-led weaning method, something that we can also communicate about and see if we can facilitate to the extent of our policies, because we also have several policies in place that we need to look out for. But as much as we can, we always try to find a middle ground that the parent will be happy about, and also the policy is satisfied.
I think that's incredible, and that's just based around the food. And I think for the parents here, it's one big advantage of being part of a big school like AIS is one that we do have these professional standard kitchens with these professional standards of, like you say, allergen free kitchens. It's incredibly high standard of hygiene. It's not like it's I think about where I'm from. In New Zealand, you'd have someone's mum out the back chopping up things in a little bit of those sort of things, right? So it's just really, for a parent, it is next level, and
it is. Even if you look at that door in the middle, this is a photo of the notices on the door. You will see that these are the allergen kitchen champions. Only these 5 people are allowed inside to make the special meals. So it's not just anybody and anybody who comes in, but these 5 people whose photos you can see are in charge of the special meals.
Gosh, that's just again another thing that I didn't quite realize. Well, and I guess for every parent watching this food, and like you say, we're going through some of those things that's so specific to infant care, isn't it? It's the food, it's the sleep, and then I guess it's following those same routines. The last one I wanted to have a look at is just having, wait a sec, where was I at? One last one I wanted to go back to. I had it in my mind just there. No, it wasn't through this year. Oh, I've lost my train of thought. What we will do now, Anna, is we've got about 20 minutes left to go, and I think it's a perfect time for the people, the audience, if they've got things that they'd like to specifically ask you, and anything that they would like to know a little bit more about in depth, feel free to please type the questions in the side. A little bit about just why we wait for people to get started and start typing any questions or anything they've got. And it's something I do at the very beginning, and I've just realized I've got all out of routine, is a little bit of your history at the school, because that's quite nice for people. And I completely forgot it. It should be the first thing. Give some context to yourself, because you're not just infant care, which I think is quite important, is where I was alluding to this.
That's right. So I actually started with AIS, I think, it was probably maybe 7 years ago. I'm not even counting, because chances are I'm going to be here for a long time. So it doesn't even make sense to count anymore. But I think roughly 7 years ago when I started, we didn't even have this building yet. And I came in to open the pre-nursery, which started at 18 months old. There was no nursery, no pre-nursery back then. So I was heading the first one. And then I remember just looking at this beautiful building from the windows of my classroom and imagining what it's going to be. The teacher's input was quite important at that time. So they were asking us, what do you need? How do you want the building to look like? So when we finally moved in here, I started again with pre-nursery, then nursery, then 3-year-olds, and then infant care. So the advantage of that is that I sort of have the idea now where children are coming from and where they are going. I know what the program has in store for them as they move up to preschool. I know sort of what skills they're going to need and who their teachers are going to be. Teachers whom I know personally, and we continue to communicate even, 3 months ago, I think we said farewell to some of our 18 months old, because that's the time when they move to pre-nursery at 18 months. I facilitate transitions, organize visits with the new teacher into the new classroom. So about a few months ago, one of the children left, and I am still communicating with the teacher, asking her, how is she today? How is she doing? What is she enjoying? Because once they're our children, they're always our children. They can be in high school in a couple of years, and I'll still be keeping tabs on them. So I think that's lovely, knowing where they're going.
Well, I hope that we have you here, that the infant care children are going to high school. But I just say for the parents who are online now that were wondering why there's no questions just yet, Anna, for some reason the chat has been disabled and we're just trying to get it enabled. I was just trying to think what the opposite was to this. Then enabled, and then the parents will be able to type the questions. Michelle's just written, you should be available now. So that's our apologies to the parents who sitting there going, I've tried to type a question. Why is he not asking it? So if you could feel free to type a question now. Yes, Michelle, I can see that, which is great. Michelle's our support person who organizes all of this. So if there are any questions.
Maybe I can offer a piece of information while we're waiting for the question.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I do know some parents, ask. They ask about the nurses, for example. So that's something we haven't covered yet, and I wanted to mention. We have dedicated infant care nurses here who also advise parents on matters such as developmental milestones or if a child is unwell. So they're almost like our doctors here. They come up, they interact with children, so babies are really familiar with them, not scared of them. They check temperatures, they make sure the babies are feeling fine. If they're a little windy, they might show us how to do a massage. So that's really lovely to have that dedicated nurse who knows so much about this age group and can advise on like portion sizes for a baby. We have a lot of parents who are vegan or vegetarian. They might advise on what to include in the meals in the diet. Because of course, when you are vegetarian, then some of the protein might be missing from the meals. So that's one thing. And I feel that's just so amazing because I used to work for other schools as well, and we've never had that. So that's a major plus.
Yeah, and you're absolutely spot on. And again, it is that massive advantage about being part of a school of scale, a school of size, that to have specialist kitchen people, specialist nurses, and again, not only specialist nurse, but specialists in this area. I've got a couple of questions here, so let's have a go through these. We've got a lovely post here, Anna, from some friends of yours in Poland that say they're missing you. I'll read that to you shortly. Which is amazing, is that. I've got a question here about start dates. Is there specific start dates? How does that work at the school?
Well, we have an open door policy, both when it comes to opening and closing hours and start dates. So it's just as easy as getting in touch with one of the wonderful admissions officers like yourself and your team, and who will then check with me if there are openings. We are quite popular, I have to say. So at the moment, we have a couple of 5-day program spots left for the month of June. But I think the sooner you let us know that you're interested, the sooner we can just save that spot for you. That's very important. Right. Yes, because we do take in children on a first come, first serve basis. And we do have a limit of 3 new starters in a week and 6 new starters in a month, because we want to give the parents and children the opportunity to bond well with the teachers, to get all that attention that they need in the beginning to feel safe and secure in this new environment that the baby's coming into. And I feel that's so important that we would rather not take in more children in that month and just really give the family the attention that they deserve.
Once again, Anna, I'm just in a little bit of awe, really. So that is absolutely fantastic. That, like you say, there's the 3 children in a week, no more than 6 in a month. You're putting the children before. That's incredible, to be honest, because I know quite a bit about daycare elsewhere, and that's certainly not the case, right? So champions of the children and what's best for them is lovely to hear. I've got a question here from Pooja, and she's asking, it's got 2 parts to it, but she sort of explains it. How do you assess children's learning in pre-nursery? Is it based more on in-the-moment learning? That's a good question.
Pooja, that's a really good question. Yes. So because these are very young learners and they develop at different rates, we do not tend to go by developmental milestones.
Right.
They are very helpful to kind of gauge where the child is doing more or less, but we do not dictate that by this age the child must be walking. Some children even skip crawling and go straight to walking. So we always try to reassure parents that's okay. It's time. It will come. So Pooja, I would say yes, it is a lot of in the moment learning. We assess. Maybe assessment is not the right word to use in our context. I would say we plan for their interests. We always try to aim that one step higher to challenge them a little bit, but not too much that they become disengaged, but just enough that they are still intrigued and they still continue to develop and grow.
When I read that question, I thought it'll be interesting to see that answer, and it's just really in depth. I love it, Anna. You really do. It's wonderful to hear from an
no question about
I can tell. And that's exactly what we want. We've got another question here from Yuli. She's saying, Anna, you make. She said that your makeup's really lovely. Oh, that's great.
Somebody noticed.
I was reading. Have I read that? Great to know about respecting culture in infant care. So how diverse is the students' population? That's quite a nice one.
Yes, very diverse. I am so lucky that one of my staff, one of the teachers actually speaks a little bit of Korean because it's her passion. Because we have quite a few Korean babies this year, some Japanese babies. We have American, Australian, of course. From everywhere. I will have a Polish baby very soon as well, so I will practice my own native language finally. So it really from every part of the world.
That adds, so that's a good question, because I think that answers if any parents from a different ethnicity, different part of the world are saying, you know, how's their child going to be? Are they the only one? Right, because you might have that. Right. A lot of people have that very big misconception. The Australian school, they're thinking, is it just all Australian? And it couldn't be.
We welcome everyone, and I think it's not so much about the Australian citizenship or language or accent, but it's more about that frame of mind, that lovely Australian, way of being. And when you come into the school, you will feel it. It's that atmosphere. It's a very welcoming, lovely atmosphere. You just want to bring out that barbecue, set it up and fire it away.
Oh, I love the way you said that, and I love that you're Polish and you're saying that, and it fits in. It is a special place when people come on here, and that's not trying to sell it or anything. It just is a wonderful place. And like you just said, you've worked here 7 years.
Yes.
I've worked here 10 years. It's like, it's a nice place. So you wonderfully said it. I did think it was lovely the way you said it. You feel like you've come home.
Yes, exactly. and I am home. I definitely feel that way. And I have worked for schools where I was there for a year, for 2 years, and always moved on. So this is actually the first place where I feel like there's so much growth. Yeah. And if we are really good at anything, we're good at being flexible and always aspiring to the next thing.
We've got another terrific question from Pooja, and actually I'm surprised we didn't cover it just in our chat. What is the child to teacher ratio in the typical?
I think when we initially chatted, we covered it. Yes.
I know.
So, our ratio is 1 to 4. So currently, the most children we can have on a day is 32 because I have 8 staff, including myself. I'm also in the classroom. I am a coordinator / teacher, so you will see me there with the children. I think this is how I can best improve the program, by being on the ground with the teachers, with the children, knowing what they need, what the parents say in the morning, in the afternoon when they give me feedback. So yes, the 1:4 is the ratio that we keep to. However, I would also like to add that because we are mirroring routines from home, then throughout the day, children might be sleeping and some eating, and some of them in the classroom playing with the teachers. So the ratio goes up and down, and sometimes it even works out to 1-on-1, because so many children go to sleep at 12:30 currently that there's only a few left. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's a really good point. Not all the children are awake at all at the same time, so there's actually more teachers around than the 1-4, but that's the ratio that we keep as the minimum. That's a great one. There's another great question here from Christine, which is a good one. How do you help infants to transit from home to school and then from level to level? So just that transition when they're first starting, I guess they're saying, and then when they're going from infant care up to pre-nursery. Can you talk us through those two?
Sure. So we actually get a lot of our information from the parents. I do have a special form that goes out to the parent before they officially start on their first day. The questions are about the routines and how does your child like to be nursed or settled or put to sleep? What makes them feel happy? What do they have a comfort object? So we try to get to know the child even before they arrive. Then I schedule a video chat with the parent where we can talk in depth about this. So when the children arrive on the first day, we can do half a day for some of the parents who are a little unsure and maybe would like to give a child an easier day. We're so flexible about this. Some parents are working parents and they really don't have any other care in place. So they might say, we would like the child to do a full day. So then what I do is usually send the parents photos throughout the day. On the first 1 or 2 days, I'll send photos every couple of hours so they can see the child is still okay, happy, or even if they're not happy, I'll just say, yes, he or she had a few teary moments, but I think we can make it until your pickup time. And sometimes we also have children who, for example, didn't eat for a longer period of time. Then I might pick up the phone and call the parent and say, so maybe would you like to consider picking up your baby a bit earlier today? She hasn't eaten yet. And it's not uncommon for babies to go on hunger strike in the first 2 days because, like I said, it's an intimate thing, eating with someone I don't know, being fed by someone I don't know. So it takes a couple of days. But I would generally say if babies are younger than 8 months old, they just adapt so fast. The most important thing is to attend to their needs as fast as possible so they don't get frustrated. And that's how they build trust. Because if I'm hungry and I show my cues and someone is there with a bottle, my world is predictable. I can trust, I can relax. But if the adult is not responsive and is not attending to the child's needs, then they wouldn't be able to build that trust.
And I think that you touched on once before, which when we were having a talk, is just helping the parents with understanding their own emotion at that drop-off time was quite important. I thought that was nice. It was meant in a nice way. It wasn't.
Yes, we do have a little area where we all sit down together. There's a couple of toys, so I can speak to the parents about how we're going to separate, and give them a little bit of a heads up on what they might expect the child to do, say, how to separate securely. We do sometimes have mummies and daddies being very emotional on the first day, and we're there for them. We'll give them 20 minutes to separate. It's fine. We're there for you. I always make sure that on that day that I am welcoming the new child, I try not to have another newcomer on that day so I can really spend that time with the parents and set them at ease. We find that children generally adapt really fast. It's the parents who really struggle and with all sorts of emotions. And so we cater to them in those first days, and the babies are fine. the babies are just wonderful. They as long as we tend to their needs.
Yeah, I like that. And just that next one, I guess, from what Christine was saying, and you touched on it a little bit during the conversation. What about going from infant care up to pre-nursery? So what's the transition? How do we handle that at the school? Can you just talk us through that?
We have a special process, yes. So I usually reach out to parents about maybe 2 months or 3 months before the baby turns 18 months old. And I ask the parent, would you like to continue with AIS, or do you have some other options that you are exploring? If they are keen, we organize a chat with Rachel Symes, who is the head of early years, so she can tell the parent more about the program. We have wonderful after-school care options, holiday options for working parents. So she explains all of that. And once everything is confirmed, then I organize transition visits with the next teacher. So the parents can visit the classroom. It's 4 transition visits. So that's really sufficient for the child to get used to the classroom and develop a bond with the teacher, for the parents to have a chat with the new teacher. So 4 times they get to visit their new classroom just before the start date.
That's terrific, and it is like you just said. Those, you'll still be popping up there and asking questions and asking
all the time. Yes,
and that's the beautiful thing again of a school on scale is every single step the child does, all the way up to 18 in our school, is on site, right? So it's just.
And what is really amazing is that we actually have pre-nursery teachers coming up to infant care on some days just to interact with the children, and they help us feed and change nappies and just have fun, sing to them, play with them, so that when the child is ready to transition to pre-nursery, they have a familiar face. They already know that teacher. They remember they come up and interact.
That's really important. Now, Pooja's got a good question here, which is, I think I can even answer, but I'll leave it to you. With the various sleeping times, is there a sleeping room that is always available for the children?
Yes, we actually have 2 sleeping rooms. And they are, so as I think we have that slide, the picture, maybe Pooja missed the slide. Yes, so we have 2 sleeping rooms that are dim with white noise in the background, high cots and low cots. And this is where we actually come to do the sleep checks every 15 minutes.
Right. Yeah, I like that. Well, that actually comes to a beautiful natural stop, Anna, because I know we could be here for another hour.
I could talk about infant care forever. I'm very passionate about it. And I think the questions that parents ask are very important for their own well-being. So I'm so glad that you invited me to have this chat with you.
I think the pleasure was absolutely all mine. And like the whole focus of Into the Classroom is, one, to have a look for the classroom and the curriculum and what goes on in our school, but it's really celebrate the absolute stars across our school, Anna. And without a doubt, I'm sure everyone that's on this today understands why we think that you're an absolute star. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much to the parents and guests for coming along, and thank you for our staff who are helping in the back end, and Michelle for helping us get those questions up. So you have a good evening, Anna, and thank you very much.
You too. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the thoughtful questions. Enjoy your evening. Bye, Matt.
Bye-bye.